Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Um, I'll turn it around back to the audience in
Wait
a
a minute,
moment.
wait one
Oh.
second. Okay, are we ready? Okay.
All good. Okay. So, as I was saying, the ball fields, it's actually in the southwest corner that you have the largest change in elevation going up. I misspoke. Mr. Breslin corrected me. So now, this site is a single integrated site, with each of the component parts being an important part, okay? The model here is to allow for gameplay, training of athletes being from teenagers on up, and therapeutic and medical attention at the medical office space for sports-related type of medical office use. There will be no overnight stays. This is not going to be a hospital. This integrated use of the site means that every component part is very important. The training facility is here. It is 60 feet in height. It is centrally located on the property, away from residential neighbors to the best of our abilities. It is 700 feet from the property line for Country Point, and it is 152 feet to the nearest property line to the north. Again, taking into account the change of topography that goes up and the foliage, we don't think that there'll be any visual impact of this building. Furthermore, the two medical office buildings, which are slightly smaller at 54 feet, are 335 feet away. This one wall is 335 feet away from the nearest property line for Country Point, and it is 180 feet from the property line to the north. Again, taking into account the change in elevations. The pool, there is a 60-foot pool centrally located, again, but behind all of the large buildings. The pool will only be open for 6 weeks a year. It is not going to be open to the public. It is open to day campers who are playing on the fields and overheat. It will only be open 6 weeks out of the year. It will not be open all year round. It will be July and part of August. There is training cages here on the outside, again, behind the building, toward the baseball fields. With regard to the variances, I'll very quickly identify where they are. Again, we've already identified the lot width throughout at 64 feet, being located along the driveway. The retaining wall height and setback, the setback is for this retaining wall here, and the height of 8, which is actually going to be reduced to 18 feet, is in this corner here. This area is designated, and it is already sloping in. Furthermore, we would be providing fencing along this frontage here and fence in the entire property, because the neighbors have alerted us to the fact that there are people who ride on dirt bikes and quads in the area, and that they use this sand pit as their recreational driving areas. So we obviously want to eliminate that nuisance from the site. It causes a liability concern for us, so we will be fencing off all of the areas, and there will be 24-hour security to make sure that there is no trespass on the property by those nuisance holders. With regard to the, I'll stick to the big ones here. With regard to the parking, although it would appear to be a substantial relaxation under the code, our parking analysis from Mr. Muller and RMS indicates that at most, at peak usage for all of the elements of this site, there would be no more than 800 cars parked on the site. The code for the town of Smithtown with regard to parking is a bit draconian when it comes to outdoor fields. The outdoor fields are based at one parking space per every 400 square feet, which would equate to, and which accounts for 1,300 of the required stalls. That equates to 270 people on each field. The most participants that we would have on the field at any one time would be 22 for soccer, plus some substitutions, referees, and some parents. In no way do we anticipate, or would be logical to anticipate, that there will be anything close to that number on any one of those fields. The parking calculations also don't take into account that there will be essentially, and Mr. Muller will talk about this further, a shared parking with regard to this site, because the medical office will be primarily used, as most medical offices, is on weekdays. It'll be Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, something along those lines. The fields will be primarily used in evenings and on weekends. So they won't be used at the same time. That 800 odd count that Mr. Muller has come up with can't take that into account under the ITE. But this board can take it into account in making its determination with regard to the variance itself. And the fact is that we would reasonably anticipate that the real parking on this site at a peak will be somewhere between 500 and 600 cars, even though the numbers say it could be up to 800. But that, again, is based upon peak usage of all of the elements. It should also be understood that the indoor training facility is not going to be holding tournaments at the same time as the outdoor fields. So again, peak usage for this element is not going to occur at the same time as the outdoor elements. That indoor training facility accounts for 546 parking spaces just based on the square footage of the building itself. Again, way more than what we would reasonably anticipate. There aren't big stands here. You're not going to see 500 people in the stands. It's not designed that way. With regard to the height, and this is why the change in topography between the beginning height of our project and all the improvements and the height, the elevation of all the residential properties surrounding it is so important. In the abstract, a 60-foot light pole height or a 60-foot building height would seem substantial. However, substantiality, as we have discussed in the past, is a matter of impacts. Truth of the matter is this: when you have a 40-foot depression, you're essentially left with the impact to these neighbors of no greater than a 20-foot light pole or a 20-foot building, because their vision is going to start 40 feet higher. So if I'm up here and the building is 60 feet, it's basically going to equate to a 14-foot or 16-foot building visually. There'll be no interference with light. There'll be no true visual impacts because of the fact that the elevation is so raised in the residential neighborhoods around it. And further, we've placed the buildings far enough away so that the medical office will be a football field away from the nearest neighbor, in fact, greater than that. The 60-foot building will be 2 football fields away from the neighbors to the east, and will be 158 feet to the neighbors to the north. But that's an area where where there's a greater increase in grade. And when you take into account the fact that there's mature foliage along the northerly border, that we will fill in any gaps in that foliage as part of our site plan, and that we've already designated potential tree species, which is obviously subject to approval from the planning board, we feel that there will be no visual impact upon any of the neighbors whatsoever. With regard to the lighting, Jim Corman will testify. I won't want to try to steal his thunder, but the fact of the matter is, broadly speaking, again, same theory. We're in a 40-foot depression. 60-foot light pole is going to be the equivalent of a 20-foot high light pole for visualization. He will talk in more in depth, but these are going to be LED lighting, fully dark sky compliant with shielding, which he can describe to you, and he can describe the other field lighting that he's done in the area. And we are confident that based upon the testimony that this board will grant our application. I would further just state that we have provided a photometric plan that unequivocally states that there will be no light spillage onto any of the residential properties, which only takes into account the change in grade of the properties, but doesn't allow us to take into account any trees. So even though the number is already zero, it can't get less than zero, but when you add in the trees, there's absolutely no chance that there'll be any light spillage due to the fact that we've put in the highest technology, the best technology that we can with regard to the light poles. So with that, I gotta look at my batting order list.
Okay.
I would like to call up Mr. Mueller to testify briefly about the parking analysis that he's brought. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. May I have your name, please?
Wayne Mueller with the firm of RMS Engineering. Our offices are at 355 New York Avenue, Huntington, New York.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
For the record, as Mr. Shea has indicated, we did forward copies of our analysis to the town today. I'd like just to submit one additional copy for the record.
Why don't you let them, you don't have one, right? We have some here. All right. Okay. And I'm going to ask you, make sure you lift that microphone, please, so that, lift it so we can hear you.
How's that?
They'll let me know if they can't.
Okay. And just to briefly summarize the results of our analysis that was originally submitted to the town prior to the town board hearing, which was held some time ago, and then recently updated based on some modifications to the plans. As indicated on the plans and in my report, a total of 2,425 parking spaces are required in accordance with the zoning code of the town of Smithtown. Those requirements are detailed on the plans, and as Mr. Shea has indicated, the way the town code and most town codes calculate the required parking is that it's cumulative in nature, meaning that all of the requirements for the various different uses on the property, the retail, the playing fields, the medical office building, are all cumulative, resulting in a requirement of 2,425. As indicated on the plans, a total of 1,116 parking spaces are to be provided, with a total of 302 parking spaces to be land banked, meaning that those spaces will be reserved for future use if it is decided by either the applicant and or the town of Smithtown that those parking spaces are required to be paved based on the utilization of the property sometime in the future. That would leave a total of 814 paved parking spaces on the property. We performed a detailed analysis of the anticipated parking demand of the various different uses on the property. As Mr. Shea has indicated, we used nationally recognized standards, that being the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, parking generation statistics, to determine what the relative parking impact would be on the property, again, assuming that the uses would be cumulative. As Mr. Shea has indicated, we would anticipate a total of around 800 parking spaces to be occupied on the property, not accounting for complementary uses. As Mr. Shea has indicated, we believe that there will be almost an offsetting peak between the playing fields and the medical office building, as Mr. Shea indicated, and I agree with, that the playing fields will primarily during the weekday be operational in the evenings, later on in the afternoon. The medical office use would be winding down at that point. So therefore, these types of uses are complementary. And again, the requirement and also the activity on the site will not be cumulative, but there will be some complementary nature in so much as the actual parking demand that we would anticipate would be somewhere around 500 or 600 vehicles peak, based on the utilization that we would anticipate to occur at the peak time. Again, as indicated in my report, we believe that there is more than sufficient parking provided on the property to accommodate the uses as contemplated, as enumerated on the plans that were prepared as part of the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Jim Corman of Acuity Brand Lighting speak briefly about the lighting.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
You're going to have to use that mic, so
Okay.
nice and loud. And I'm going to ask you to spell your last name.
Okay, it's Corman, K-O-R-M-A-N.
Okay, and your address, please?
It's number 21 Lotawana Lane. It's Lotowana Lane. That's in Stony Brook.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically what I was brought in to do was lay out the lighting for the entire site. And I guess what was asked of me, just to tell a little bit about background from my company, myself, and then what was involved with the lighting process to get to where we are today with what is selected on the plans that we had submitted there. And basically, I work for the largest lighting manufacturer in North America. Last year, the company did about $2.1 billion in sales, and is on the leading edge of most of the technology that's happening right now in the lighting world. So the equipment that's been proposed for this application here is the most state-of-the-art, highly engineered equipment that's available on the market right now. A little bit about myself. I've been in the lighting business for the last 20 years. I've been with the company that I'm currently employed with for the last, since 2002. And I've been I'm lighting certified, which is basically the equivalent to like an AIA architect, where I have to take an exam and continually take learning units throughout the year. So it's something, it's an ongoing process to keep me up to date with the most current trends in the lighting field. And so I guess what this whole design came to being is that, just to give you a little quick background of what the design process is for a lighting job. Basically, the first step is the application, which is, in this case here, these fields, they're going to be used for various applications. The main thing is being baseball. It's recreational level baseball. And so there's a certain foot candle requirement for the infields and the outfields, and that's based on the IES recommended standards. And the IES is the Illuminating Engineering Society, and that's basically the organization that gives the guidelines to all the lighting that's done throughout the country, and it's basically the code. They're not laws, but they are recommendations, and most people do follow those as their recommendations. So after the application's figured out, and then reference the Illuminating Engineering Society references, basically you find your light levels, your uniformity ratios, and then you would pretty much, in this case here, because it's baseball, you want to model the baseball. If you're playing at night and you have a baseball and you're showing light from one side, you can have shadows. The main thing is that the players can see the ball, they have good visibility, no one's going to get injured, so you have to do a good job of modeling the baseball. So that's one of the key factors in coming up with the proper lighting job here. So, and then the next step is actually what I do is I reference the town ordinances. Town ordinances have really only been around for not that long for lighting. I know the town of Smithtown, I'm not sure exactly when it went into effect, but it's probably no more than the last 10 years, and that's because people became aware of poor lighting jobs and light pollution and spill light. So my first step is to check with the town and find out what the requirements are. In this case, the town of Smithtown recommended that the pole height be no higher than 18 foot, no spill light, so no light over the property lines, and the light source to be fully shielded. And so once I found out those requirements there, the next step is to basically, you start figuring out, okay, now with 18-foot poles, it's almost impossible to light a ball field with 18-foot poles. And I check with my colleagues, and just to find out, maybe someone's doing this around the country or something, but it's really not possible. And so that's where the variance came in, and that's what is being asked for today. And that's basically because I'll give you an idea. I don't know if you had gotten a copy of this submittal, but basically what I did is I just took really a generic copy of each light fixture, and just to give you a quick indication of what the fixtures are that are lighting this whole facility on the outside. Now this is right here, your traditional light source for a ball field is a big floodlight. This it's all LED. It's all the elements are up underneath the housing, so none of the lights are in direct contact or direct line of sight for the residents. And basically, the way this works is, if you want to have a baseball field covered with light from the perimeter, you have to go up high enough where you're going to get coverage into the center of the field, but you're also going to provide good lighting, because if the ball is hit up high and it goes beyond a lighted area, you're basically going to get the ball lost up in the darkness. So you have to balance these things, and you have to pick out the right lighting sources. So that's why we're asking for the 60-foot pole. We feel that that's the best height as a minimum to protect the players, to give them best visibility, and also by not tilting the fixtures at all. None of these fixtures are tilted on the whole property. Every single fixture, the parking lot, they're 18-foot, they're not tilted. The wall-mounted fixtures are all non-tilted, everything's down. So when you look at this site at night, from the distance, it's just going to look like a very calm atmosphere. It's not going to be this atmosphere where you're going to see a ton of spill light and sky glow. So really, what I guess I'm just trying to let you know that there's a lot of work that goes into picking out the right fixtures. I probably clocked in over 100 hours designing this job already, and you look at it and you say, oh, that's really not, you think it's not that much, but and I don't know if you have a copy of this here, but this basically shows these rings right here are basically the distribution of the light fixture, and it shows that all the light is kept on the property, same as the parking light, the roadway lights, all the building mounted lights, all keep the light on the property. Everything is facing down. So, but to get to this level right here, it's a lot of time and effort. And so what I just wanted to let you know today, that this is probably the most complex site lighting job I've ever worked on, but I've worked on a lot of site lighting jobs throughout Long Island, New York City, and one just comes to mind, and I'll leave you with this, is that the ball field at Citi Field, the parking lot is all, I supplied the high mast lighting. It's very tall poles. They're actually 75-foot and 45-foot poles, and these are fully shielded fixtures. They're not LED, but they're fully shielded, and if you go there at night, you can get an idea of what the lighting will look like at nighttime. It's very subdued, and it's not light spilling all over the place, and that was a requirement from the Mets. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have any?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. 55 light poles at 60 feet in height,
Correct.
just for the ball field?
That's for the ball field, right?
What are the size of the light poles for the parking lot?
The parking lot is, they're 18-foot poles. They're two heads each.
And the roadways?
And the roadway, actually, those are 10-foot post top fixtures, and the walkways throughout the complex are also 8
So the
foot.
60-foot is just for the playing fields?
Correct. Right,
Thank you.
and then, yeah, and actually the poles, the way they're designed, they're very minimalistic. They're basically it's four rows of 4 bullhorns. So you have like a bullhorn shape. So really only have an arm. You have 4 fixtures across the top. You have another set of 4 fixtures, 4 and 4. In some cases, it's 4, 4, 2, 2. So at the top of the pole, that's 60 foot tall. At the bottom part of the where the fixtures are mounted, each ones are 2 feet below that. So it's 60, 58, 56, and 54. So the lowest one's at 54 foot and the highest one's at 60 foot. So when you're looking at these lights, you're only seeing, at 60 foot, you're only seeing 4 light fixtures.
Thank you.
Do you have anywhere local where the fixture that you spec for this location have been installed?
Actually, I don't. These are actually brand new fixtures. These fixtures, they're actually a lot of times used for roadway type applications. These are designed for pushing the light from the sides of roadways out into the middle of the road for main arteries where you have multiple lanes. And so basically it's taking that same type of concept, but in this case here, instead of having, 3 or 4 foot candles, which is what you would find from a light meter, in this case here, you need 30 foot candles for the infield and 20 foot candles for the outfield. So you're having just more of the same, but the fixture has only been around for probably, less than a year.
And what was the model number on it?
It's actually, I had submitted it with the, this plan right here, which I don't know if you want to just hold on to this here, it's fine.
How do you want to look at the model, see the model number?
So basically, the model numbers are right.
Okay, you have to walk back to the microphone. You want to look at the top here, so to see the model number? Compared to-
What?
Right. I guess in this case here, the model numbers are listed here, the catalog numbers, description, the lamp source, the lumens, the light loss factor, and the wattage are all listed on that table right there.
Can we keep this for, I guess, the file?
Yes.
Thank you.
And actually, let me just give you this also. It's the same. It's really generic, but I wanted to give you this so you could see it where it complements each one of these. It's just a blow-up picture of it to give you an idea of what the fixture looks like instead of being just something arbitrary.
Is it 55 fixtures or 55 masts?
55 masts.
Okay.
Basically,
Why don't you
it's
look at these and then pass them down, all right?
it's five baseball fields, and each field has 3 ball fields. One's a larger field, and then 2 smaller ones. And so each field, there's 5 fields, has roughly 11 poles. And to do a normal sports lighting job, to do a normal baseball field, typically you use 8 poles. So this is basically using 11 poles for 3 fields instead of 8 poles per field, which they're basically combining the some of the fixtures on the same pole to save the poles.
Look at those and then pass it back to these gentlemen.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Corman?
No, thank
No.
you.
Okay.
Oh, but,
Okay.
Mr. Flynn does.
Okay. Oh,
Suffolk County's had some concerns about bright white light versus warm light.
correct.
Do you know whether these will be warm or cool lighting?
Well, these are actually these are same as you would have right now for like a mall parking lot. It's a cool white. What's been happening a lot in the lighting world is companies been putting out a very cool white, which is very like a blue white, and I know that a lot of folks don't like that. It creates more scatter, more sky
Agreed.
glow.
Wait, pass it around.
So this is basically the same as you would find as a metal halide light source, which is considered a cool white, compared to very cool white, which is more like a blue white, and that's not what these are going to be. These are going to be, very, they'll be cool, but they won't be a very blue white.
Thank you.
And I know that concern, and I know that a lot of folks are wanting to go even warmer than the 4,000 Kelvin. They want to go to something that's closer to like a 3,000 Kelvin. And in some cases, you can do that without having to lose efficiency. And if that's part of the requirement for the for the complex, we can certainly review that and see what it would take to make it a warmer light source.
We all good?
We're good.
Any other questions for the lighting?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Give me that folder. I would like to just kind of just put one thing a little bit in perspective, because I know Jim doesn't speak at public hearings all that often. This is his second one. The first one was at town board, and I got to say his improvement has been exponential. So that you're really aware of what this diagram means, is that this diagram, the little circles here and then the bigger circles there, that's where the light's going to come down, and that's going to be the end of where the light comes down from any one pole. So when you're looking at this, and you're looking at this field lighting on the northerly side of the property, you'll notice that the circles end just outside of the baseball fields, so that you still have another 150 feet to the property line outside of these circled areas down inside what I'll call the valley, where the project will be. So I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that, and that if you also look at the foot candles surrounding on the three sides, they all come up zeros, so that there will be no spillage onto the neighboring properties. And one other last thing is that, and I know Jim was talking about this, but may not have adequately provided this for you folks, is that this is the typical, and this is the spec that we're going to use for the field lighting. This here is a shielding. So, and the actual bulb is actually inside, up inside, above the shielding, which is another measure of dark sky compliance, which again protects the neighbors from any glare, so that the light bulb is never shining out directly at anybody. The light bulb only shines down because of the fact that we have shielding. So if the bulb is here, the shielding is here, you can't see it. And now I will go to Kathy Eisman and Nelson Pope and Voorhees to give a very brief overview of her report, which was submitted to the board, and I'll hand up an extra copy of the lighting to the board.
How's that?
May I have your name, please?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Nice and loud.
Kathy Eisman.
Spell your last name,
Last
Kathy.
name spelled E-I-S-E-M-A-N.
All right, and your address?
I'm at Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and our company's located at 572 Walt Whitman Road in Millville, New York.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I am a certified planner, and I've been with Nelson Pope and Voorhees since the beginning, 1997, and became a partner in 2005. I've been working with Chick Voorhees for over 20 years. He is the managing partner. Okay. Sorry. We were asked to look at environmental planning considerations, and in this case, it's mostly related to land use compatibility. When you think of a residential area that abuts an industrial area that's been there for forever, and many nuisance uses that have, over time, this area has been changing. This particular site obviously has been sand mined for a while, and when I was out there back in April, there was moving work going on, and so, you know, there was truck activity on the site. I also got to meet some of the neighbors while I was out north of the site, and they had complained about the ATV use as well as, you know, illegal activity occurring on the site. So from a land use compatibility perspective, when you look at the uses that could be built on this site, warehousing, truck station with a special exception, those are the type of uses that would bring in a lot of heavy trucks, and those are the kind of uses that are not the most, you know, those aren't the uses that you want to have next to residential properties. If we were doing a land use plan today, you wouldn't put necessarily an LI district right next to residential land use. So this use that is being proposed is a much more compatible use when it comes to a transitional use between a residential neighborhood and the industrial uses that are continuing to the south and southeast. From a visual perspective, as Mr. Shea alluded to, this is a property that's sunken, and the heights of the buildings, the highest building and the lamp posts are 60 feet, which from view, as viewed across the horizon for the neighboring properties, would appear the same as a 20-foot high building. I mean, of course, if you stand at the edge and look down, it's different, but when viewed from the neighboring properties with the vegetation that's in between and the proposed evergreens, you will not see a building that's looming over you. From a planning perspective, building heights very often are placed in order to not have a 60-foot building, for example, looming over a building next door. So in this way, this application will not cause a building that's looming over an adjacent site. So pretty much that's what we were asked to look at, visual impacts and land use compatibility. So basically, it's my professional opinion that the proposed project provides a great opportunity for the area to provide a beneficial reuse of the site. It's a community use, it's one that's needed in the area, and it eliminates the potential for a large-scale industrial use on this site.
Thank you so much. Yes, you can get Mr. Flynn.
Is there any buried material on the property? Any construction demolition debris? Any landscape waste or any municipal solid waste or any other kind of waste on the property?
To my knowledge, no, and I have been out there when they've been moving earth, but
Okay.
not throughout the process, so I would defer.
If I may, the subject property was previously under an order of consent with the DEC. The property has been fully cleaned. It's no longer under any orders. So the property is environmentally safe and friendly at this time.
Okay. Does that answer the question in terms of, is there any buried material?
Oh, there is no buried material.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Pardon me, I had a brain freeze. And next, I'll have Mr. Breslin talk about the real estate
All right,
impacts.
just we're doing the real estate part of it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Good evening. John Breslin, 44 Elm Street, Huntington.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. In connection with this application, I was retained by the applicants to study the impacts on real property values. I've been involved in the application since the outset. I appeared at the town board hearing as well, met with the applicant, of course, reviewed all the application materials that were submitted at the town board hearing, as well as in preparation for this hearing, visited the property in the neighborhood, and met, of course, with the applicant's team on several occasions. Much of what I was actually thinking of saying, Ms. Eisenman just said some of it, talking about the benefits of this transitional use. This board is fully cognizant of the uses along Old Northport Road and the heavy industrial nature of those uses and the heavy industrial nature of the use that preceded on this property. And that's the nature of the uses along Old Northport Road, especially as you move west along Old Northport Road on both sides. And as you move closer to Indian Head Road, it begins to change. And this is an opportunity to start that change a little bit earlier. and provide that transitional use from the heavy industrial use that preceded it and exists adjacent to it and surrounding it, to something that's more transitional in nature, in this case a recreational use combined with an office use. The concept of a recreational use in this immediate vicinity is not that out of character. You have the golf driving range immediately next door, and you also have the hockey rink and the tennis facility across the street and down the block on Indian Head Road. And those have been used as providing transitional uses in this immediate area. But for the abutting residential neighbors, this is a glorious opportunity with this redevelopment of this property to go from something that's not an industrial use, which is certainly permitted in the zoning district, to this hybrid use that's recreational and commercial, which is far less egregious than an industrial use that would be permitted as of right. The redevelopment also allows the implementation of buffers and mitigating measures that were not in place when the property was originally developed and were not contemplated when it was originally zoned and the houses were put next to the industrial district. So the redevelopment allows those things to occur. But the greatest divide, if you will, that exists, that provides the protection for the residential communities that abut it to the north and the east, is the great topographical change. The property being in the hole that it is provides the separation between this developed property and the residential communities that abut it to the north, and that's going to provide the separation and allow the additional mitigating measures and the buffers to provide true separation between that. It also provides, and I think gives great clarity as to why the variances that are being sought tonight are not that significant. The bulk of the variances that are being sought, or those that are significant, are related to height, and those height variances are clearly, if you look at them in the context of the relationship between the ground level elevation and those property around it, as was described by the previous speakers, you will see that as they relate to those properties around it, they're really not that significant. And Mr. Muller indicated, went through the testimony why the parking variance is not that significant. So overall, I think it's a great opportunity to redevelop the property to provide that transitional use. By redeveloping it, I think it's certainly not going to not only not have an adverse impact on property values, I think it potentially has a positive impact on property values, and also provides something that's greatly needed both in this community and communities as a whole, recreational facilities for the benefit of the town residents in this area. Also, would redevelopment and increase the tax base without putting a burden on the municipal services. So I think it would be a very positive redevelopment of that property.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Flynn has a question.
Sure, Mr. Flynn.
You thought it would have a positive impact on property values. Does that include the people who abut the property?
Yes, I think it does, because the reason for that is because you can't look at it in a vacuum. It would remove the uncertainty of what would happen with this now vacant, large 44-acre industrial property that ultimately at some point is going to be redeveloped, and most likely would be redeveloped with some type of an industrial use. Now having it used for this type of a purpose, I think, would remove that cloud of uncertainty, plus the current uses and prior uses of this property have been nothing but a problem for those surrounding residential properties.
So a realtor would have an easier time with this being approved than?
I believe they would, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for our expert testimony. I see there's a lot of people here. I'm sure they want to speak, so it might be best just to allow them to speak, and then I'll come back, rebut, and conclude, unless Mr. Flynn looks like he's raising his hand with a question.
We were saving questions till the end, but if I could ask Mr. Shea 2 questions, I'd appreciate it. First is I checked the map. Every time you mention 40 feet, I find a 50-foot hole.
Well, it's 50 foot along the northerly
Right.
side, and I'd rather, and it appears to me to be 40 feet on the easterly side. I would rather err on the side of caution, and I understand that Country Point may continue to elevate a little bit
Right.
after the property line.
Right.
But I'd rather take the conservative
Okay.
approach and not be accused of misrepresenting any of the facts with regard to
I
this
understand.
application.
Okay. But you're not proposing to bring in fill or raise the floor of this property?
We are not proposing
Okay.
to bring in any fill to raise the floor of the plateaus. There will be grading of the property, but we're not going to raise the base elevation above that
I understand.
116, 118 feet.
Thanks. I was wondering whether or not that it had to do with Country Point, because I knew that they were about 10 feet lower.
Yeah, I
Although
believe
think
that
there's
they
a
are.
berm on their side of the fence, at least a little bit. But the other thing, it would be helpful, I think, from a traffic standpoint, if you had estimates based on the actual use as opposed to the ITE standards, because those are like generic requirements, or not requirements, they're empirical pieces of information, empirical data from around the country of sort of generic, say, soccer fields or something. But how do we know that this won't be worse or better than the generic soccer field or baseball field or whatever?
Well, again, a field is a field is a field in a certain sense. Is that a
Right.
baseball field is going to, it can only fit so many people. And 5 fields can only fit so many people. The ITE standards are based upon those fields, based upon the proposed use of the training facility with a large indoor field again. But the town code, with regard to the variances,
Right.
doesn't take any of that into account.
Right.
I mean, the numbers are so astronomical when you take into the town code that it really isn't based in reality. There's no way you're fitting 273 people per field when there's no stands. It's not going to happen. But with regard to that, I may have to defer to Mr. Mueller with regard to anything, with regard to specific numbers of specific sites. Maybe you can help me out.
In regards to the applicability of the ITE
Just take
standards,
the mic up.
of the Institute of Transportation Engineers standards as they relate to real-world or actual traffic and parking conditions on Long Island, we have done numerous studies, for instance, say of medical office buildings, which found that the ITE standards in some instances are very conservative in nature, meaning that they overstate the quantity of vehicles that are parked for various different land use codes. As Mr. Shea has indicated, and I agree, that the ITE standards as they relate to playing fields and the most applicable data that they have is soccer fields, and based on my experience with soccer facilities, based on the fact that my daughter played soccer for many years, they seem to be very realistic. So the utilization of the availability or the parking that's to be provided on the property, in my professional opinion, is fairly accurate. And there are 300 plus or minus land bank parking stalls which have the ability to be constructed if the town and or the applicant somewhere down the road finds that, well, hey, we need another 100 or so stalls, they would make application to the town to then construct those parking spaces. And I think that the approach that both the town and the developer is taking in this case by land banking those stalls is a very practical one, because why would we want to build parking that we don't necessarily believe that we need and have it be green space or lawn rather than pavement? So, thank you.
Okay?
Are there any further questions? Thank you.
First one, I noticed at the Calder meeting you had said that we don't need to eliminate the land bank, or the parking islands, and I count 46 in the paved area and about 18 in the land banked area. Is that what if we approve this, is that where we're going to be going to?
That's what we would be going to. This is right, as far as the land, all the landscaped islands that are on the new plan, the landscaping plan, are intended to be constructed, except those that are going to be within the land banked area. So I have not added those up.
Okay. All right, thank you. The other question I had was, I noticed you have your land banked parking to the, I guess, southeast
Yeah.
of the site.
I guess southeast,
I'm sure a ton of work went into this. Had you considered moving those land bank spaces to the northeast and moving those structures further south, further away from the residences? And if you have, why couldn't you?
We have, and the reason why it won't work for us is twofold. One is that we only have one access point here. So, and second, these buildings are designed to be interconnected between the two, and they're also to be interconnected with the training facility this way. We've looked at numerous, and then you got to also fit in the fields.
Mhm.
So there was no real way to fit in each integrated part any other way for us. What we have said is that we are going to land bank from here on in. I think we could consider continuing to land bank up here in the north portion here. I would be concerned because this is going to be a phased project and the medical office would go up last. I would be concerned that at the time that the medical office is going to be built, that they would want parking stalls nearest their building.
Mhm.
But I think we could probably land bank this during phase one, but I'd have to talk to the engineering and we'd have to study it a little bit in a little more detail. But I don't think we could say, we won't preclude it at this point, but we have to study it a little bit.
Thank you.
It's not something we can say right off the bat, given the topography.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Mr. Flint, we all right? Any other questions? Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask you, I know there are a lot of people that want to speak. I'm going to ask you, though, to line up so that it doesn't take that much time getting people from the seats. So if you would line up here, I would appreciate it, please, if you're going to speak. So that we can go one after the other, please. Okay, I'm going to ask your name. I'm going to ask you to spell your last name. I'm going to ask your address and swear you in, okay? May I have your name, please?
Joseph Dirks, D-I-R-K-S.
Okay.
Address 44 Marvin Drive, Kings Park.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
My concerns are about the detriment to the nearby properties, in that lighting, which we've addressed, but also noise pollution. I've worked near ball fields. I live near ball fields. I know how loud they can be. There'll be 15 teams, 15 actual games being played concurrently. When I get home from work, it's the evenings. When I get home and I'm home for the weekends, there's going to be playing. So every time I'm home, there's going to be noise from the playing. So what I'm concerned about is that they maintain that buffer zone as long and healthy and densely populated with sprinklers to maintain the interplantings, with the conifer, non-deciduous type trees. But I'd also like to see that the buffer zone is maintained at grade for as long as possible before it goes down to this new grade that they're talking about, where they don't taper it. Because what I see here, it looks like there's a topographic lines that are close together that shows they're going to slope their way down. That minimizes the amount of buffer zone that we have for our property. I'm also concerned about the 55 lampposts. The posts themselves may become illuminated by the light that's cast down by these trees. So if they're 20 feet above grade, my grade, then I'm going to see 55 lampposts that are illuminated times, at 20 feet of illuminated poles itself. So I have a concern about that. And that's about it.
Okay.
So I'd like you to address that as much as you can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please. Okay. You're going to have to take that mic down. All the way down. Does that help you?
I
Okay.
guess so. Is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
May I have your name, please?
Hi, I'm Christine Dabrowski, D-A-B-R-O-W-S-K-I, 40 Marvin Drive, Kings Park, New York.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Like the gentleman is, he's only a couple of doors away, and I'm representing about 10 other people on Marvin Drive. It's like, we've been fighting this buffer zone that we have. We have like maybe now it ranges between the houses 40 to maybe 30, 40, 50 feet from our house to the back. And that's called the so-called fire zone that we had years ago.
Make
For
sure you
the
talk in that mic
trucks.
so I can hear you.
Pardon?
Make sure you talk to the
so-
mic so I can hear you, dear.
for the trucks, for the fire zone behind the house, and that's supposed to stay there. But ever since all the sand mining we've been dealing with and all the garbage we've been dealing with for over 40 years, it's been graded down. But thank God we have that little bit left, and it goes straight down at a certain point. I have trees behind my house, and from Fifth Avenue over, the sand miners came all the way up to the backyards. And he was fined for that. He corrected it, and everything came back. But theirs is only about maybe 30 feet. And they use that as a little buffer. And there's a road there that goes into the country woods, like behind them. That's also a safety road, a fire road. We just want to make sure that those roads stay there. And if anything comes behind it or down it, continue a buffer zone and to keep it protected. And the other worst thing we're thinking about now is these buildings. Why do you need a 60-foot building? It's a physical therapy place, an athletic place. 60 feet? And if that you do that 60 feet, you say our land is, what is it, you said it was of 50 feet? You're going to go 10 feet up above my house? That means if I had a 10-foot fence behind me, I'm going to see a big building. If I wanted to live in New York City, I would go to New York City. I don't want to see a building behind my house. And we are concerned with the lighting. We don't understand this lighting. It's all new. And that's a little, iffy, and you can't see any example of it in and around here. So that's the other thing. I mean, I was for it in the beginning, but I'm a little worried about this building. What do you need a 60-foot building for? What are you putting in it? That's my concern. And the other thing is the entrance is only one entrance. How do you know people aren't going to go in and around our neighborhoods and things like that and try and get in?
Okay,
Thank
you. Next, please. Now you have to lift that mic. That's all right.
Okay. Hi, I'm Caroline Harris,
Spell
87.
your last name
Oh, Harris.
and your address, please.
87 Manitou Trail, Kings Park. I'm in the vicinity of the Country Point.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I would like to also express to the board there's plenty of people, of residents that are sitting here tonight that are not coming up because they're a little nervous about speaking to you, as I am, as my voice is shaking. But they are that group right over there. Hello, neighbors. Thank you. Okay, but the reason why I wanted to come out and speak tonight, I am not an expert on this, nor do I pretend to be. I am a kindergarten teacher in a school, so I know of the fields, I know of the children, and I am an advocate of all the children, especially my own. But I would like to say that most well-kept neighborhoods that house a sports complex, football fields, or recreational facility do have guidelines to help benefit both the facilities and neighboring homes and neighborhoods. In Lido Beach, a huge football stadium had recently gone up, and it has engulfed the entire neighborhood and perimeter of the homes. It is not only a complete eyesore of all metal cages, bleachers, and lights, but it's atrocious and sad how the town accidentally allowed for something so large to take over a quiet, affluent, and once well-sought neighborhood. I used to live on the block of Harbor Drive in Lido Beach, and if you go down by Long Beach, where the boardwalk has been redone, you can go take a look at this facility, and it was a complete accident. The neighbors did go, and they heard about the plans, and now if you drive by, the neighborhood is engulfed with this football field, and I would never move back to that block. This plan that we are hearing about with 65-foot lights, 5 baseball fields, and 2,400 or 1,000 cement parking spaces does not sound like a complex looking to work within the confines of a small neighborhood of Kings Park. 11 p.m. lights off is another issue that we discussed at our last meeting, and the board did conclude that they were looking to negotiate at 10 p.m. To shut off the lights. If that does occur, what about the parking? What happens with the people who are lingering behind? You can't shut off the lights in the parking lots if the people are just coming off the ball field at 10 p.m. What about the tailgating issues? People like to bring food and drinks and support their teams. So that goes on a lot, and that's also another worry that I would think that all the neighboring homes would have to consider. I'm hearing of this stadium. It's state of the art. That's amazing. My son is a baseball player, but we're not looking to house the Mets, are we? The options I think that you as a board should consider is downsizing this project, keeping the buffer zones, extend them even more, bring down the lights and the height of them, and keeping, one thing you asked of us was to keep the crowd control and an orderly and professional conduct, and I guess I'm asking you to give us the same respect as well. Keep our neighborhood looking as aesthetic and livable and a nice place to remain. I beg that you go by one of these sport complexes that have taken over neighborhoods and do something before it's too late, because once they do go up and they become more than the neighborhood, it doesn't look very nice.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, please.
Hello, my
Hi.
name is Lisa Biolsi, B-I-O-L-S-I. I
And your
reside
address?
83 Manitou Trail, also in Country Point.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I'm kind of want to echo the same comments that Caroline, we didn't plan it, but one of the gentlemen that had spoken said that it appears that the major impact to this project is the height of the buildings, height of the lights. So according to the letter that we had received, the variance said that one was to increase the height of the buildings. So if that is such a major issue, I ask that you not consider granting that height variance. So that's my first thing, because although we met with these people beforehand, before this meeting, although they are building in a hole, where we reside, we have 2 stories. So even though 20 feet, I know that we have their assurance perhaps that they will put vegetation in, fix the fence line or whatever. We're still up at our bedroom levels, are still 2nd story levels. 20 feet is 20 feet. We still can see that. The other thing that I just heard, though, when the gentleman who was talking about the lighting, in the parking lot, which would be directly adjacent to our residential area, it was the 18-foot lighting that was proposed. Now, the first time that I had heard, though, that he spoke was the double light poles. So I just would like more clarification on that. I realize that the ball fields comply with the dark sky requirement. I don't know about those ones in the parking lot, whether they are the same type of fixture that is proposed now, because they are saying that these are double lights in there. So, and the last one, just to kind of go a little bit further than what Caroline was saying in regard to ball field lighting goes off at a particular time, parking lot needs to remain so that people can leave that parking lot. So what we're concerned about is then, so even if it is 11, if it grants it the same thing as the town, what is that going on? Do the parking lot lights remain on all night for security reasons? And then, if not, what time do they shut off? It does. No matter which way you cut it, I believe, even with vegetation and with fencing, it will impact us. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Seth Candela. It's C-A-T-A-N-D-E-L-L-A. I live at 48 Marvin Drive.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I'm not prepared. I wasn't aware of this meeting until last minute. My neighbor next door to me told me that it was going on tonight. The first concern I had, they were talking about the vegetation that's behind where I live right now. From the plans that I looked at, I will now have a baseball field right behind my house. Right now, the vegetation is full. I can't see anything back there. It looks like I live in a forest. But once fall hits, it's winter time, you can see everything back there. And there's just one light that I guess the sand mining has right now, one light bulb. That one light bulb I could see from my house during the winter time. So I can imagine, I heard the gentleman back here when she said, I don't know if the parking lights are staying on. He said, yes, they will be on all night long. So I will see those parking lights all night long. Another concern I had, my main concern actually would be the noise pollution. Games going on until 11 o'clock at night. It's loud. I mean, we've all been to baseball games. We know they're loud. I know it's not going to be a major league game or even a farm league game like the Ducks, but it's still, there's going to be a lot of noise pollution. You're going to hear it all night long. Maybe if you go inside your house, you won't hear it, but being outside, having a barbecue in the back, we're going to hear it all the time. Right now, once we hit a weekend, we don't have to hear anything going on, but our weekends are no longer going to be as quiet as they used to be. I heard them talking about now they want this special variance to raise the height of the buildings. I'm concerned. Before, I was still concerned when I'd have to look down to see a building. Now it's going to be staring at me right there. 20 feet above is the same level, I guess, as our house is what they were stating. The same thing with the light poles. Maybe the light won't reflect onto our property, but we're still going to see the light. I understand there's not going to be glare, but just looking at that light now, it's an eyesore. It's something. I've only lived in Kings Park for 4 years now. I moved there because I lived in an area where I was surrounded by woods. It was the closest I can get to being in the country. I really don't want to be in Nassau. Kings Park it's a hidden place. Not too many people know about it. I drive 50 miles to work to get to a place like Kings Park. And my last concern would be crime. I'm a police officer. I know what these things bring. I know you're going to have security. I know security is going to do the best that they can, but security can't solve everything. There's going to be crime. I know you disagree with me. Speaking of the company, I'm just ask that you consider that. I know as in baseball fields and soccer fields on Randall's Island in New York City, your Icon Stadium, produces a lot of crime. It does. There's a lot of purse snatchings and grand larcenies that happen, a lot of robberies that happen, causes a lot of people drinking. I know they're not going to be serving alcohol because I asked that last time. They said there would be no alcohol served, but people are going to bring alcohol in. Alcohol brings crime.
Okay.
I just ask that you consider all these things and please think of the homeowners and the people who live right there. At least the height of the buildings and everything, please.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
Sean Lehman,
Spell your last name
Lehmann,
and your address, Sean.
27 Columbine Lane.
Okay,
I am-
raise your right hand, please.
Sure.
You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I am the president of the Kings Park Civic Association, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, and members of the zoning board. We were before the town board when this application first came through there, and we spoke in support of the project for many reasons. But we did state some concerns. Some of those concerns have been met. We have other questions, so I'll state the questions, and hopefully Mr. Shea could answer them. First of all, we'd just like to say that we recommend all the plantings that are necessary to buffer the site from residential neighborhoods. Now, I have to tell you, we've worked with the applicant and the planning department for quite a long time now, and the applicant's very willing to work with the community and plant as many trees and evergreens as they need to be. We just want to make sure that someone's there, or that the town is diligent on making sure that the plantings are the necessary plantings are being done. As far as the parking area, here's a question. The lighting will be down lighting, I assume, 18 feet high, like your normal down lighting in a parking lot. So that's one question. As far as the, because I know a lot of residents have some concerns about the wintertime and so forth. Most of the activity won't be taking place in the wintertime. They have one indoor complex in the wintertime. But I'm assuming that the buffers will be mostly evergreens, and I would assume that the planning department will be working with the applicant on the types of trees and so forth. But we would recommend some evergreens to shield the site away from the residential neighborhoods, even if many of the playing fields will not be in use during the winter. Playing fields, the lights, I think we need to get a little bit more information on the 60-foot lighting, the LED lights. We have talked to the planning department about some of this. I think the information is still a little early. I think we need to study it a little more. You know, we would appreciate it if the planning board, the zoning board works with the planning department to go over the lighting study. One of the things that I noticed while I was sitting in the audience is it's not, with all due respect, it's not a really great setup. A lot of the questions that the audience might have, they weren't able to see some of the diagrams and some of the conceptual plans from the audience. The lighting plan was here. It showed the light spillage in the area. I saw it from the side, but I didn't happen to see it, you know, from the audience. I didn't see the whole plan. So hopefully somebody could hold that up for the audience. With lighting, even though this lighting might be down lighting, I'm not sure if it's shielded. I was told it is. I guess somebody can confirm that. There's always a glow. I know LED lighting. I'm an electrician myself. LED lighting is much different than your incandescent lighting. It's more direct. You can get a lot more with a lot less wattage. But there's always a glow somewhere. How will that glow be mitigated towards the residential neighborhoods? Will it be more buffers and so forth? And, you know, like an answer for that one. The view from Marvin Drive. If the buildings are 60 feet high, the tallest structure, and you have a 6-foot fence in your backyard, how much taller will the structures be than the fence line? We have concerns about the height of the building. We hope that the planning department will work with the applicant to find a solution for that. Other than that, you know, this is, you know, I'm trying to speak just on the variances, but I'd just like to say, you know, this is not going to be a public area. It's a private area. It's for travel baseball teams and so forth. You know, you're not going to get a lot of the people that you see in parks and so forth. This is a private facility. Teams pay to play there. So you're not going to see many of the things that you might see in a public park, and, you know, they might see at Chelsea Piers and other places like that. We'll be working with the applicant. We'll continue working with the applicant and with the planning department to find solutions to all of our concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Next, please.
My name is Neil Rosenberg. I live at the 96 Manitou Trail in Kings Park.
Okay. Spell your last name.
Rosenberg.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm concerned about security. I was president of the Babe Ruth League in Greenlawn. We had one field, that's all. The lights were shut off at 11 o'clock. The kids come, and they come to see their friends. They come with liquor. They drink. They break into the cars. It got so bad that we could ask the Suffolk County Police to make a round, so they came around every hour, hour and a half. But it still was bad, so we had to get an officer. Every night we had an officer at the field to make sure that nothing was happening, and if they did, they called the police. So I understand that we're going to have security. I don't know what security means. It means one person on the site. That's not security, as far as I'm concerned, not for this type of facility. What has to happen, it seems to me, is the security that they have has to coordinate with the local police. There has to be a monitoring system, and there have to be a round of the local police coming through every once in a while to deter these kids, besides the security that they're given. Okay? Thank you very much.
So much. Okay, I don't see anyone else online. Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Shea to come back to answer your concerns, and then we will close it. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try and hit all of them.
Okay, I have some written down too.
Okay. Well, with regard to noise pollution, we submitted within our report a noise analysis of existing conditions versus the proposed, and shows that there will be no perceptible increase in any noise pollution from the industrial use and the ATVs that are driven there now. With regard to the sloping, and I think that there may be some confusion with regard to people who are saying that the buffer is going to be reduced or that there's going to be less area. The buffer, as it currently exists, both to the north and the east, is going to remain as it exists. The sloping off of those buffers is going to essentially be the same, other than possibly the inclusion of retaining walls to ensure that the sloping remains the same and that it is not in jeopardy by erosion. In addition to that, we will supplement the planting in the buffer areas wherever it's reasonably needed to provide screening to every residential neighbor along the perimeter of the property. So any change with regard to the buffer is only going to be positive. It is not going to be negative. It will not reduce the size of the buffer in any way, shape, or form. With regard to the reflection of the light onto the poles will be black. Black absorbs light, does not reflect light, so we don't believe that that's an issue. With regard to the fire accesses for Country Point, they will remain as is. We do not have ownership over those properties. We have said, and we will continue to say, that we're more than willing to provide additional fencing or repair the fencing that is there. We've seen that that fencing is a bit old and dilapidated, and we're more than happy to put stockade fencing or something that will act as another shielding to the site. Let's see. With regard to the 60-foot lights, and we've said this before, but it does bear repeating here. So we're in a 40-foot hole to the lowest of the residential neighbors, to the property line, which has a 6-foot fence next to it. So now you're at 46 feet. You got a 60-foot field lighting pole, which from the 46-foot area is over 700 feet away, 2 football fields away. We are volunteering to put additional plantings to further insulate the residential neighbors in Country Point, so that we are going to provide a full screen canopy to those neighbors so that they won't even see the lights. Same with the north. North is actually even higher, and it goes up to 50 feet. And if you add on a 6-foot fence, that's 65 feet. If we have a 60-foot building, only one of the buildings is 60 feet, remember, and it will be peaked. So only the peak will be 60 feet. You have a 50-foot drop, plus the 6-foot of fence, plus additional plantings, and the distance of over 180 feet between that and the nearest residential neighbor to the north. Again, you're not going to see it. The fencing and the trees will fully screen you from any visual impact. You should also remember this, that the bluff continues for 50 feet. So where the fence is, the property line on the northerly side here is over 50 feet in width. This is more like 60. This is about maybe a little less than 50. But then you have this 50-foot right-of-way here, so it's actually the same, which is about 75, 85 feet. That's all going to remain and only be supplemented. It's not going to be, trees are not going to be removed. Trees are going to be placed there to further insulate you. With regard to tailgating, there's no alcohol is going to be served at this site. This is mainly a site for kids to better themselves with athletic training and team sports. There'll be no alcohol, no tailgating to speak of. Will mom and dad bring a sandwich to give to their son while they're playing 2 games on a Saturday? Of course. This is for children. This is a needed facility. Your school districts don't have the money or the facilities anymore to provide the type of services in the competitive athletic endeavors that our children are all involved in. a lot of this was repeated, so I'm just, the parking lot lighting, two things. One is it's all going to be pointed down. It's all going to be dark skies compliant. It's all going to be shielded. It's going to be 18 feet in height, and it'll be on a timer, so that after everything's said and done, the fields close, some parking lot lighting will remain on, and it will slowly shut off. It'll be on a timer so that only that level of light needed for the security guard to take a look and make sure that everything's going okay will be required. But you got to remember this. You're going to be 40 or 50 feet up in the air with fencing and trees. The parking lot lighting is going to be in a hole of 25 to 30 feet from the nearest property line. And your houses are not on the property line. They're set back 20 or 30 feet.
Okay. I think we covered almost.
Just making sure I got it all. I don't want to miss anything.
Well, the last gentleman wanted you to define security.
With regard to security, we're going to take the reasonable measures necessary to ensure that this is a safe place for families and for people to be at. You have to remember this. This is not a place where it's easily accessible. We're going to have fencing all around it. You have driveway access in and out. We're going to employ security. There'll be no alcohol served, no alcohol allowed to be consumed on the site. And really, I mean, very respectfully, security is not an issue for this board really to take into account. The question is, should we be granted the variances that we are requesting? And I believe that we've proven our case with regard to those variances that they should be granted. We've shown that there won't be any detrimental impact to the character of the area. We've shown, and I'll ask that I just be allowed to expand on this, that the applicant can't achieve this any other way. This is a lean project. All of the component parts have to add in together. This is the business model. It only works if every component part is granted. If we get the lighting granted for the ball fields, but the medical office doesn't get granted, our tenants may very well walk, and we won't be able to facilitate the project itself. So everything has been designed with two things in mind, is that all the component parts meet the business model, and secondly, all of the component parts have been placed in locations to mitigate the impact to the residential neighbors to the north and the east to the greatest extent possible. And we will continue to mitigate through the site plan hearing process. And at that time, we'll better define exactly what trees, what species, the exact location. And whatever the planning department wants us to do with regard to that landscaping, we'll be willing to do. And whatever the planning department wants us to do with regard to repair or installation of new fencing to ensure that screening to those residential neighbors, we're willing to do. As I've said before, yes?
I think, Mr., you have a question?
I have a question. You compared the sound to be similar to an industrial use or the ATVs, but the industrial use normally would be over at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, it could also start at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right. And the ATVs would be an illegal use, wouldn't they? And the residents would have a right to call the police to get the ATVs chased off. So.
We will meet all of the sound codes of the town of Smithtown, and we will not violate those codes. And we are confident that, based on our studies, that the ambient noise will not be heard and will be imperceptible to the adjacent residential neighbors.
All right. Are you winding down?
Yeah, I'm winding down. Really, I've kind of covered it all within the context of the testimony. I think you know what our case is, and I would hope that you would grant the application.
I got one last question. Sorry to drag it on.
No,
Should
not a
be
problem.
Quick, though. On the two buildings, the medical office, you're showing 54 feet high.
Correct.
Is there a need for 54 feet?
There is a need for 54 feet because the total square footage that is being requested by our tenants has been at 100,000 square feet, and that's when it makes it, for them, economically viable.
I
So
understand that,
in
but
order,
the
well,
standard story is only like 14 feet max. which would bring
Well,
the
this
building
is,
into
this is going to
42.
be medical office. It's, I don't know what their specific need with regard to height is in context, but it has been discussed between the engineers, the architects, that this is the height that they are requiring in order to fit all of what they need
Okay,
into the building itself.
thank you.
Okay.
And I would note, again, please, that those are the smaller of the buildings. The biggest building is the 60-foot training center, and again, it's very far from any residential neighbors.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing, please.
So moved.
Second? Second?
Really moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. What? Yeah. Yeah, no. Okay. We need to take a break, ladies. I'm sorry, but
Does court go on this long?
3.5 hours in a row, we don't.
I know. I'm kidding. Court, you get breaks like every half hour.
Rick is not with us. He has to read the case. You have to read the case.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Okay.
Okay. The next case on the agenda, number 1-17131, Woodvale Properties. The location of the property, 23 Woodvale Avenue, Kings Park, the east side of Woodvale Avenue, 130 feet north of Highland Place. The property is zoned R10. The applicant requests a variance to increase the height of a dwelling from 2.5 to 3 stories, increase the maximum gross floor area from 25 to 40%, variance to permit structures within 10 feet of environmentally sensitive land, slopes in excess of 15%, a variance to expand a non-conforming structure, reduce minimum south side yard from 12 feet to 3 feet existing, and reduce minimum north side yard from 12 feet to 10 feet, and reduce total side yards from 28 to 13 feet for a 1,085 square foot first floor addition, 1,085 square foot second floor addition, 1,302 square foot third floor addition, and a 600 square foot attached garage to an existing 910 square foot dwelling. Increase the maximum permitted paving in the front yard from 25 to 60%. Reduce the minimum setback of paving from 1 foot to 0. Reduce the minimum setback of a retaining wall from 3 feet to 0 in the front yard, existing. Increase the height of a fence from 6 feet to 8 feet in the rear and side yard.
Donald King, 75 East Main Street, Kings Park, New York. It's a rehearing. At the last hearing, there was a young couple that came up, and it seemed that they objected. They lived to the left of this property. I spoke to them outside. They told me they had no objection because the house was set back and they were okay with the application. I just want to let you know that if you're going to view it in the context of the last hearing and this hearing. Also, Judge Dunn to the right rear was in favor of it. And there was one neighbor who thought Osama bin Laden was going to live in the house. And for many reasons, he won't be living there. They seem to complain more about the fence. And if they don't want a fence, we won't put a fence up. Not a problem. They were complaining about the fence more than the house. When they did complain, they didn't tell you their house is 180 feet away. But if they don't want a fence, we won't put a fence up.
Right.
I want to go into the cases that this
Right.
court has granted to me.
All right, I'm going to ask you for some guidelines on each case. If you can give me the lot area, the shape of the lot, and the surrounding FARs.
Surrounding FAR, each of these,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm not going to be able to do that. How many, I have the case, I can give you the information, but I'm not going to know the FARs around them. The first case is case 14024. You approved 25% FAR to 37%. The square foot of the lot was reduced the lot area from 10,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet. It was Laurel Road, Kings Park. The next case is case 15419. You granted an FAR increase from 25% to 40% on that one, and that is located at Highland Drive.
What was the square footage of the lot?
I don't have that. It was an R10 district. I didn't ask for a reduction of the lot, so I assume it was 10,000 square feet or more. The next case was case 14005, increased the floor area ratio from 25 to 40%, Rosewood Road, Kings Park. The next case, I'll hand all these up to you in a minute.
Oh, well, we have them right here.
You have them?
Yeah, these are the ones you gave us. I'm trying to see how you're comparing these to the application you have here.
My purpose in giving these to you is that this board has increased FARs. And I'm going to get to a couple of properties that are in the neighborhood where this board granted significant FARs. But I want to show that this board, you just can't ignore that you guys gave FARs over the years, an increase in FARs. Case 14743, a 25% FAR to 42%. That's Meadow Road in Kings Park. Case 13894, 25 to 43%. Cypress Drive, Kings Park. Case 15128, 25 to 44%. That's located on Rosewood Road.
And what was the lot size in that?
I assume it was over 10,000 because I didn't ask for a variance. In that letter, there's no indication of the request for a variance for lot area. Case 14823, 25 to 49% FAR, Walnut Road. Case 15710, 25 to 50%, Lancaster Avenue in Nesconset. And of significance is Greg Hill got right around the corner from this subject property, got an increase in the floor area ratio from 25 to 50%. It's on the corner of Core Road and Woodvale, right around the corner from this property. So that there is this precedent in the neighborhood for increasing the FAR. My client got a variance on Woodvale under case 13444 from 25 to 57%. Once again, there's precedent for FARs increased size. This is the address is 57, 23 Woodvale, and I believe this application is 23 Woodvale. This 50% FAR is 47 Woodvale, same street. And then the final case on the FAR is case 12360, 25 to 59%. So you've got, if you don't want to consider these, you must consider Greg Hill's, and you must consider my client's, Greg Hill's to 50% and my client to 57%. Certainly the character of the neighborhood. Will it produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood? We gave it there already on a couple of lots, and I don't think it will. Can it be achieved by some other method? No. We need the variances. Is it substantial? I don't think so. This is a pretty big lot. Will it have an adverse effect on the environment? No. Is it self-created? I think he's done some work on it, but that doesn't make it fatal. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Go ahead. No questions.
Thank you.
Is anyone here to speak on this? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Really moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All righty. Madam
Good
Chair, the next case, number 17147, Glenn and Leslie Pfeiffer, 5 Aspetuck Court in Comac. The location of the property is the west side of Aspetuck Court, 147 feet west of Longhouse Way. The property is zoned R21. The applicant requests a variance to reduce the distance from any lot line from 1 feet to 0 for paving existing, increase the rear yard paving from 25 to 42% existing, reduce the distance from any lot line from 8 feet to 1 foot for an existing 19 by 38-foot pool.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Wayne Edwards, Sawn, Ward, Coscignano, and Baker, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. I'm the attorney for the applicants. The applicants and their children are to my right. I wish my children acted so good, and my children, I said 27 and 31, and I couldn't have kept them here all night.
That's right, after 3.5 hours, 4
Yeah,
hours.
they did pretty good. The premises that they own has a lot size of over 12,000 square feet. It's currently improved with a single-family home, shed, pool, and a partially finished backyard paved area. My clients purchased the property in 2003. In 2013, they applied to the building department of the town of Smithtown to construct the proposed pool and patio. A building permit was issued. I'd like to submit that if you don't have that in your records. And they proceeded to construct the pool. Unfortunately, an error occurred, a rather large error.
Yes.
This was unexpected. Their pool installer basically didn't follow up. My clients indicated that they might like a different position for the pool. He said no problem, but failed to file a new plan and with the building department, amend the permit, and if the permit would have required a variance, believe me, they would have left the pool where it was. So they were completely shocked by this, and it's caused them a lot of expense, a lot of consternation, and they were quite upset. What we're seeking today, as read, was variances for the pool. We want to decrease the minimum setback distance from rear lot lines from 8 feet to 1 foot. Regarding the paved area, decrease the minimum setback distance from the rear yard from 1 foot to 0 feet, and the third variance in the R21 zone is for lot coverage for the rear. 25 is permitted, 42 is what we're requesting. The pool is partially in. It's filled with water because it would have been destroyed. If it wasn't, if we have to move it, we're talking about a very large expense, probably 15, 20,000. Everything that's in the ground would have to be disrupted. This would include the outdoor paving area and sitting area. In terms of drainage, drainage has been factored into it. All drainage stays on the property. That's a requirement. Doesn't flow onto anybody's property. We did, at the first hearing, the reason why this was adjourned is that a neighbor to our rear, when they received a certified mail, called my office and said they had objections, and that's Mr. and Mrs. Rosen. They live at 23 Empire Court. 23 Empire Court is a unusual lot in that it's over an acre, where most of the lots are R21 zone or 12,000, 13,000 square feet, and this is an oversized parcel. Their house fronts on Empire Court, and then most of the rear of the area, it's like a large irregular shaped slice of pizza, It basically goes to a point adjoining various property owners along Astapak and on other sides. I have a map, which basically my client's property is in yellow. You'll note the Rosen's property, which is the triangle parcel that runs along your rear, also runs along the rear.
You need to use the microphone as much as you can. Oh, okay.
So unfortunately, my clients had built a fence and basically intruded on the Rosen property when they did this. The fence went from one property line, from one neighbor to the next neighbor's property line, and went along that common line. Mr. and Mrs. Rosen had an attorney, Philip Aaron, who I've been in contact with. We had desired to go into a boundary line agreement with the Rosens or purchase the property, and they had the right to, and they basically didn't want to do that, which was okay. So over the last 2 weeks, what we've done is we've moved the fence onto the property line. We withdrew the waistline of the pool and brought it back on our side of the property, removed a small bit of patio area that was intruding on their property and brought it onto our property. So now that everything is on our side of the property. The property that I have a picture that was taken on Monday of our property. These are two pictures taken by my client, which shows that the fence was moved. Any debris that was on the Rosen property, which is the treed natural area behind our property. The Rosens can't see this property from their house or from even their usable backyard. And it shows that the patio was also removed. So I'd like to submit that. In addition, with my conversations with Mr. Aaron, who is the Rosen's attorney, I indicated that if this board granted the variances, that we would get and I think we need it for the CO anyway, if CO is issued, we would get a final survey, and it would certify that all of the improvements, the fence, the patio, the pool, and any other item would be on our side of the property, and we would present that to him to indicate that. So we've been trying to I've been in constant contact with Mr. Aaron. He's contacted me by email, and I've responded as best I can by email, and basically acceded to all of their demands in terms of their request that nothing be on their property line. So we will make sure that the fence, the patio, there's no pool equipment, nothing on their property, and that's already been moved, but I do have to produce the survey, but we can't produce the survey until we finalize everything so that we have everything done.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm not clear, why was the pool put so close to the property line?
By mistake.
By whose mistake?
The pool installer.
He didn't know where the property line was?
No. What happened is that, two things. One, he just placed the pool and didn't know it, but the fence that might have been the property line was offline because whoever put the fence in initially just ran it from, you know how you do it, you look at your client's adjoining neighbor's property, you see a fence over here, you see a fence over here, and then you just run along that line thinking that's the property line. In fact, what was interesting, when I first spoke to my client, they didn't even realize this was the Rosen's property. They're a member of an HOA, and they thought it was part of the green belt of the HOA, and actually contacted the HOA, and the HOA gave them a letter saying, we have no problems with this. But to be honest with you, the HOA didn't own it. When Mr. Aaron and Mr. and Mrs. Rosen contacted us, we went over to town records and determined that it was their property, because they had never seen anybody in the back over there. They just thought it was a green area, and that's what caused the whole problem. So it wasn't, in terms of the pool installer, he probably thought he had some additional distance, but he should have filed the amended plan with the town before he put a shovel into the ground, which
Right,
is...
so normally permits would be filed, and somebody from the town would come and look at it before any construction would be started.
He already had gotten a permit. He just thought, hey, what's the big deal? I'll move it. He should have known better. My clients didn't know better, but he should have known better.
Was this an experienced contractor? or-
I think it is, and
It
believe
is.
me, after the end of this, he might be a little poorer. But that's something up for my clients to decide. No one likes litigation.
Okay.
Now, these are area variances, and pursuant to the balancing test that you have on the piano, under Section 267B of the town law, establishes guidelines for this board to grant these things. And the balancing test basically measures whether it's the detriment to the surrounding property owners versus the benefit to the owner, to the applicant. And it takes into consideration, in terms of the benefit to the applicant, if the variances are weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. As I stated, we have from the two adjoining property owners, we have consents that they signed. These are number 3 and number 4. Go ahead, Mr. Microphone again.
That's all right.
Pass the buck. And the town law then states to the board in making a determination, should they also consider whether there'll be an undesirable change to be produced by the character in the neighborhood. Now, there's one thing about pools, Long Island, they're all over the place. If the board wants, I do have a Google photograph. I used Mr. and Mrs. Rosen's house as the mark on the Google photograph, and all those little blue things around my client's property and the Rosen property are pools. So that basically establishes the character of the neighborhood in terms of pools and Long Island are synonymous.
Thank you. That's it?
The question is whether the benefit to the applicant can be achieved by some method. As I indicated, this was not something that we planned. It's something that we were burdened with in terms of our pool installer. The cost of removing the pool and replacing it would be, as I indicated, thousands of dollars. Is the request for an area variance substantial? Not in this case. You know, one of the issues that we normally would have if we were dealing in a normal subdivision is that by placing the pool up against the property line, we would be disturbing the people behind us. If you look at the aerial photograph that I submitted and the Google photograph, basically most of the Rosen property is just natural growth. It's treed, scrub trees. It's not thick trees or anything. It's just a lot of natural growth of a couple of inches of diameter on the tree trunks, a lot of brush and things like that. So there's not going to be ever anybody behind our property that we're going to disturb. And whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. No, this is a backyard use. My client's children are here. They're looking forward to finishing this backyard and being able to utilize the pool this summer and enjoy it. So this is what the reason why they're buying it. And whether this condition was self-created, in a certain way, maybe it was self-created in that they should have been a little more cognizant of what their pool installer was doing when he located it, but you know, not being in the industry, not knowing the right questions to ask, they thought by getting the permit they had done the right thing, and they left it up to the professional, and they were sorely disappointed. So on behalf of them, I'd like to request the board to grant the variance.
Let me just tell you, we don't have a secret recommendation, so that means we cannot make a decision tonight.
Okay. But eventually one will come, I hope.
I hope so too. So let's see if we can get that for next meeting.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? Gentlemen, any questions? Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard? Come up, please. May I have your name, please?
Yes, it's Barbara Rosen, 23 Empire Court in Comac.
Okay. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
And are you speaking, gentlemen?
Yes.
Okay, let me swear you in.
Go ahead.
I'm Michael Rosen,
And your address?
23 Empire Court, Comac.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
We thought that that they would have a survey tonight because that's what we need to see, because they encroached on our property 15 feet. Not only that, but they cleared the woods. 15 feet of our woods were cleared. We have pictures. And we asked, we asked that they put up some kind of greenery, substantial greenery, okay, as a sound barrier. When I walk a couple of feet into my woods, I see them, I hear them. I didn't see that before. We have a lot of woods, and that's what we love, and that's why it's all natural. And it's what we cherish, and that's all I can tell you.
Okay.
We have no other objections except that, the survey and the barrier.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You going to speak?
Yeah. Just to say the same thing as my wife, what we're concerned about is that if and when we do sell our property, we don't know what the future buyers will have intentions for. There's a lot of space there. They can put a tennis court in for all we know, or another pool. So we would like to have some barrier back there such that it doesn't look like it's been, just leveled for no apparent reason. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, this is where they are. Okay.
Well, as I indicated, I've been working with Mrs. Rosen's attorney. I did promise that after we finish construction, we will produce a survey that we normally would for the CO, and we would make it as a condition of this approval that after we produce the survey, that everything will be on our side of the property in terms of the fence, in terms of the fence, everything, patio and everything on our side of the property. So I thought that was finalized with Mr. Aaron. We couldn't get we started doing this 10 days ago. It's impossible to get a surveyor into the property to resurvey the property. It was staked by the surveyor, so we did have that staked in terms of when we moved the fence from its prior position to this position. In addition, one of the I won't call it accusations that the Rosens had made is that we had cleared some trees down, but we had shown them after Sandy the wires for Loco or PSEG now run behind the property. They don't run in the street. So some of their trees had fallen down, and PSEG had come in and cut those trees. I don't know, in terms of, if you look at the pictures, we still have some trees up on our side of the fence. So it's not that we cleared this property, and that fence had been there for over 7 or 8 years before the pool was there. So the fence existed. We didn't really clear out anything. PSE&G did it. If the planning department would think that some screening is necessary, even though this is such an overgrown area, I can't imagine that any formal plantings be necessary down there. But if the planning department or waiting for CEQA should determine that we need some screening, we'll be glad to put it in.
Okay,
That's
thank you
part
so
of being
much.
good neighbors.
Okay, thank you. No, you cannot. Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready, moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I really